Finance Committee to order at 9 a.m. In accordance with the live streaming law, this meeting is being conducted via video conference and is being live streamed on the MDTA Finance Committee webpage. All members will have their video active during the entirety of the meeting. I ask that anyone who is presenting or answering a question to please turn your video and audio on when speaking. When you're done, please turn your video off and put your audio on mute. To minimize background noise during the call, I would ask that everyone on the line please mute your phones except when speaking. There are no members of the public, no elected officials, no media who have pre-registered to comment at this morning's meeting. This time we will begin with agenda item number 1. We're seeking approval of May 10th, 2022 open meeting minutes. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
So move.
Okay, we have a motion from member.
Everybody see me? Yes, there we are. Hello. I will give the presentations and then we'll be able to answer any questions. Okay, to start off, this is for CAPS contract MA2257. CAPS manages the lane side of the contract. This modification is necessary due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the transition to all electronic tolling. This modification will add $8,764,758.28 with a new contract total of $71,911,342.78. This modification will allow CAPS to process the current AET image review along with recovering the backlog from the pandemic. The modification will also allow the continued purchasing and installation of equipment required for the AET zone installation, audit compliance, fund costs associated with the pandemic transition backlog processing, additional task orders to improve functionality for customer service, and to fund operations and maintenance for years 1 and 2. The modification will also modify the scope of work to allow for work to occur on phases concurrently and provide a time extension for phases 1, 2, and 3. A 13.20 MBA goal was established for the contract. CAPS, the contractor, is currently achieving 25.89% based on expenditures to date. Are there any questions?
Any questions from members? Member Artinger.
So part of this is that we escalated, we moved a little bit quicker in our cashless tolling. Is that understanding of mine correct?
Yeah, so Member Ardinger, when these contracts were laid out, they included cash collection and all electronic tolling for the facilities that had it. And they also included options to convert 2 of the facilities to all electronic tolling. So with the acceleration of the transition to AET, we had to bring in those other facilities. And additionally, the contract includes line items for processing image-based tolls. And so, you've got what we call an ABI transaction where when a customer rides through with an Easy Pass transponder mounted, it'll read that Easy Pass and link it to the account and charge the customer based on the Easy Pass rate. If we have to take a picture of the customer's license plate and associate it with the Easy Pass account, or do a DMV lookup to identify that customer, that has totally separate toll collection equipment and has a different process, and often requires what's called a manual image review. And it's that human element of reviewing it that costs more money to process than a transponder-based toll. When we went into all electronic tolling, about 15% of our customers paid by cash at that time. And so by transitioning customers over many years, we had expected that if we had converted out all the way out to 2027 like we had originally planned, then we would have been able to get our penetration to more gradually and have far fewer image-based tolls. But because of the overnight transition, not only did we have to get additional equipment installation for the AET equipment, we did delete the cash equipment and had some savings from that. And the costs that we're bringing to you, this just over $8 million that Jerry presented, that's net of removing the cash costs. But we have the in addition to the equipment costs, we also have the costs for processing the higher volume of image-based tolls than what we had contemplated when the contract was laid out. And so it is also important just to note that we are expecting that penetration rate to improve over time. And that, like, when we, if you compare like our Fort McHenry tunnel facility to our express toll lanes, prior to the pandemic, we operated around just under 80% penetration rate, whereas our express toll lanes were always well above 90%, upwards of 95% of the people that used the facility had an Easy Pass. And so we expect with AAT, more customers will migrate to either a pay-by-plate or a Easy Pass model. And with that, our costs will come down. And so this modification is only for operations and maintenance years 1 and 2. We will need to come back for a modification when we can do a better estimate on what those image-based transactions will be, the quantity of them for operations years 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6. But that will be a future mod that we know we will need to do, but we're only bringing this first year so that we can kind of see how we do in the future with our penetration rate.
Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is we moved quickly. We moved more rapidly than we initially planned for, which I understand because of the situation we had to. So some of this cost that we're looking at, we have incurred that cost eventually down the road anyways, or is this moving rapidly?
Yeah.
That's
all of the equipment costs would have been incurred down the road. And in fact, we actually saved some money by not installing the cash equipment. By being able to delete cash equipment, we actually save money there. Where we do have added costs is whatever the delta in the penetration rate would be. Had we converted later, the hope was that we would have had a better penetration rate when we converted, and so the cost for image-based processing would have been lower. So that's a consequence of an earlier transition.
Thank you.
Well, I
Well,
have a couple of questions. Legal review and procurement review. Have we done that on this? I was going to ask for the second one too, but I'll ask that at the next agenda item. But can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I think Donna's on.
Sarah Bowe, Director of Procurement, for the record. Yes, procurement has been involved every step of the way with this certification. and negotiations with CAPS as well as the next contract for TransCore. And it has been through the legal process and they are all in the loop. This will also be taken to, as you might imagine, to the Board of Public Works. And we will be holding pre-meetings with board staffers before the actual board meeting, as well as meeting with the new treasurer to bring them up to speed on this contract before it's actually brought to approve for an approval item at the board at the July 6th meeting.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Meryl Dunlap, Deputy Counsel for Legal, and yes, Legal did review and approve this.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have, there are some delays on this. Are we paying for any of those delays? This is to Will.
Yeah. The good news is the cost changes that you're seeing in both mods are to deal with the all electronic tolling conversion backlog. In the case of the TransCore mod, the next mod we'll present, it also includes costs for the customer assistance plan. And there are allowance items to allow for some future changes, like being able to run installment plans and e-wallet options, things that the board has asked for, that frankly customers have asked for. Those are some future things are included in the mod as well. There are, however, no cost impacts to the MDTA for any of the schedule delays. We negotiated hard with the contractor to make sure that the time impacts from COVID, from their schedule delays in implementing the software were non-compensable time extensions. So yes, the schedule was in from the pandemic, but we are not paying any more for that.
Thank you.
Well, just a question about the 8.8 million. So would it be possible for us to get just more of a breakdown of those costs, either now or prior to in advance of the board meeting approval? I think that would be helpful.
Sure.
And then
I can, if you'd like, Member Rosen, I can give you a quick verbal. I thought this was in your package, but I'll make sure that in the board meeting package, we include the itemized breakdown. So just a quick verbal on it for you. The CAPS contract for O&M years 1 and 2 includes, I'm going to just say high level the number, and then we'll give you the breakdown. It's about just over $3 million in line item changes that are associated with the actual million of it is specific to the video-based toll transactions. As I mentioned, those image-based tolls, processing them in the AT environment is the big change. So that the prior cash transactions now are image-based due to the additional volume. We have 2.7 million of that 3 million is just for that. And then the remaining 5.7 million of the money is for the actual equipment and installation of the AAT equipment. And then there is an allowance item in the amount of 4.5 million. And that is to do future improvements, options for future enhancements on the facilities in terms of equipment and other features that we could leverage to improve customer service longer term. So, and you may recall, as part of the customer assistance plan, we talked about exploring options like payment plans and different features that we could bring benefit. However, that cost for the allowance item is offset by a $4.5 million savings that we have by deleting line items related to cash. So that's a high level summary, but we will absolutely in the board package provide the detailed breakdown.
Great. So on the savings side, so I understand not purchasing the cash equipment. Are there any other savings? And some of this may bleed into the other contract that we're going to talk about, for the centers, I imagine more were there, but anyway, just for this specific contract, were there any other savings besides the 4.5 million related to the equipment?
Related to the cash installation, we also
Yeah.
had some savings for the maintenance of traffic that was needed in order to do that equipment installation, and credit card terminals, things like that, that would all be things that if we had considered installing a credit card in the actual booths to allow people to swipe instead of using cash, that was also deleted where there's no stopping to pay any longer. So all of those kind of items that were really part and parcel with cash collection were deleted and were savings.
Right. And just more from the mechanics. So this is an increase, and then so some of this is over a 2-year period because some of the costs are related, but it sounds like a lot of this has already been cost incurred. So we're going to be remitting these payments sooner than later. All right.
That is correct. That years 1 and 2 have technically already commenced, and a lot of the backlog image processing has already occurred. And so the allowance item will be partly to replenish for where we've used allowance to pay for some of those backlog transactions. And these will for these modifications because of the fact, again, they were always going to be retroactive. We transitioned to AET overnight and authorized that change due to the fact that we made the change instantaneously. So that element of it was always retroactive, but it's also retroactive that we changed the schedule sequencing where we tried to recover the schedule delays using where instead of doing activities sequentially, you try to overlap them to compress the schedule.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rosen. Any other questions? Okay. Is there a motion to advance this item to the full board for consideration?
So moved, Member Carroll.
We have a motion from
Member
Carroll.
Arden.
Is there a second by
Member
Arden?
Arden, second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We will move on to agenda item number 3, MA 28680000, TransCore Customer Service. And Gerald Noonan and Will Pons will continue to present. So we will, you still have the floor.
Okay, this is the TransCore contract MA 2868. TransCore manages the back office side of the contract. This modification is necessary for the same reasons stated previously for CAPS. The modification will add $63,106,810.98 with a new contract total of $263,535,583.79. This modification will allow TransCore to process current AET transactions along with recovering the backlog. The modification is necessary to have funding in place for operations and maintenance years 1 and 2 in the AET environment and provide a necessary miscellaneous allowance item for task order work such as options, call center enhancements, features to recall debt, and to provide staffing and services to enhance performance for the customer service plan, which is already in place. The modification will also modify the scope of work to allow for work to occur on phases concurrently and provide a time extension for phases 1, 2, and 3. A 15% MBE goal was established, and TransCore, the contractor, is currently achieving 28.09% on expenditures to date. And any questions?
Any questions? Many board members.
So I have a, this is similar to the prior contract. Could talk about the breakdown of the 63 million.
Sure. So the only savings on this contract is for just over $30,000 for speed notices. The original toll plazas used to, if you would actually travel through at high speed, it would email a warning to the customer indicating essentially, if you don't slow down, we're going to revoke your Easy Pass privileges due to the excessive speeding through the booze. With AAT, we've turned that feature off. We were inundating people with speed notices because we're asking people not to stop now. And so despite that, we actually have looked at our facilities and so even though we are allowing for those speed differences, especially at the full highway speed facility version of AT, and we always said that would be a safety benefit. So that's one savings. It's a minor savings, but it is included in the modification. So the kind of breaking down, 7 million of that is specifically for the customer assistance plan and the additional staffing that's required to help manage the additional call volumes. And not just call volumes, but just to be able to respond in a more timely fashion. You may recall that in February, when we took the customer assistance plan to the board, we noted that we thought there would be a net cost of the program of 27 million related to the elimination of revenue from the customer assistance plan, but we did not have the cost for that would be associated with the staffing. It just so happens that the two numbers are one and the same. That net 27 million also turned out to be the estimated cost for the staffing. That staffing cost, we had the labor rates were already in the contract for staff, so we did not need to negotiate the dollar amounts, but we did negotiate the hours and how many staff would be needed. Those staff by the mod are going out and through February of next year. And the usage of the staff is in a not to exceed. Does have the ability that if we want to reduce the number of staff to bring down the cost because we see we're consistently meeting the KPIs, then we have the ability to do that. And TransCore's plan also did include a little bit of a ramping down of staff as we know we're going to clear the backlog this summer and expect that the volumes are going to drop once that pandemic backlog of tolls is cleared. So that's a big item. After that, the next big series of things are all actions that are required, really related to costs.
Thank you.
Member Ardinger.
Actually, that was exactly the question I was going to ask. I think that kind of information would be really helpful, especially when it goes to the full board, to know what was going to be incurred down the road and what is the actual additional amount that we weren't expecting, if that makes sense.
These cost breakdown exhibits in your package, and I'm looking at it now and seeing that they're not, but we will make sure that they're provided for the full board materials.
That is that area that's being discussed. Member Ardinger and Member Rosen addressed my question as well. The 27 and the 27. Right, that you just mentioned, Will, earlier. I guess it's important that we have that information, and you're going to get it to us, and we appreciate it. Any other questions?
And if I could just point out to what Will was saying, any money that we don't use in years 1 and 2, we're actually going to give back. So there could be a savings in years 3, 4, 6.
Right? Any other questions at this point? Okay. All right. If not, is there a motion to advance this item to the full board for consideration?
So moved. Member Rosen.
Thank you, Member Rosen. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Member Carroll.
Thank you, Member Carroll. Discussion? Okay. If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I just wanted to, for the record, for those watching on the live stream, we are having a few technical difficulties. The live stream is up and running. It is slow and sometimes patchy. So for anybody watching the live stream, we are working on the technical issues. I just wanted to let them know that we are aware.
Thank you, Natalie. We appreciate that. Okay, we will move on to item number 4, MT 3146-0000, elevator maintenance, and Tina Dorn present. Good morning, Tina. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? I am here to present contract number MT 3146, elevator maintenance and repair for MDTA facilities. The purpose of this project is to provide preventive maintenance and service repair for 19 elevators and 1 chairlift located at 6 MDTA facilities at the William Preston Lane Bridge, Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, Fort McHenry Tunnel, Francis Scott Key Bridge, Point Breeze Headquarters, and John F. Kennedy Highway. The scope includes, as I stated, preventive maintenance and repair services for all mechanical components of MDTA's 19 elevators and 1 chairlift. There are no state allowance amounts within the contract and compliance. And we are seeking recommended approval to present MT 3146 to full MDTA board for award of this subject contract. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from any of the members? Okay. If not, we will, is there a motion to advance this item to the full board for consideration?
Member Arndinger also move.
Okay, thank you, Member Arden. Is there a second?
Second. Member Rosen.
Second.
Thank you, Member Rosen. Is there any further discussion? Okay. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, members, and Tina, thank you for your presentation this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, we will continue to move along, and we will, next item, item 5, FY 2023 final operating budget approval. Jeffrey Brown. Good morning, Jeffrey.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Jeffrey Brown, Budget Director for the MDTA, and I'm here today to request a recommendation for approval to the board for the final full year 2023 operating budget. $177.2 million, which represents a $15.8 million or 4.4% increase versus the FY 23 preliminary budget. The key drivers in this budget Increased steps and COLAs are driving those costs, and additional motor vehicle purchases for the MDTA police. Moving on into the variance of the 15.8 million. To better understand it, we broke it into two major categories: mandated spending and discretionary spending. The mandated spending accounts for 12.4 million, while the discretionary is 3.4 million. Of the 12.4 million, again, the big driver of these costs are personnel costs. There was a 3% and a 7% COLA for civil and sworn employees, respectively, which account for a $6 million increase. There were additional 66 police vehicles for sergeants and members of the civil disturbance team, which accounts for a $3.4 million increase. There were step increases in both full year 2022 and 23, which increased the budget $1.4 million. The employees' retirement system accounts for a $1 million increase. For all the fringe accounts, costs increased due to the base costs increasing, which was a result of the COLAs and the steps increasing the wages. Moving on to employees and retiree health insurance, these costs increased by 0.9 million. Social Security increased by 500,000, again, due to the personnel base wage changes. The law enforcement There was an increase due to the base wages increasing, but this was offset by a $2.1 million reduction in surplus funds budgeted for the deferred retirement option plan. To discretionary spending, which was a 3.4 million increase, the key variances are in vehicle operations and maintenance, which accounts for a $3.4 million increase. Breaking that down further, there was a 1.3 full year 20. As mentioned in various budget versus actual reviews, we've been having supply chain issues, which has delayed delivery of vehicles. So these costs are being rolled over into the new budget. There was a 2.1 million increase in gas, oil, and maintenance. And this was increasing due to two reasons. One was the additional vehicles, like the MDTA police vehicles, and inflationary. Most of us, I think, are painfully aware. We've seen fuel prices increase pretty dramatically, especially in the last quarter of full year. Management studies and consultants increased. Management program, which increased by 800,000. The connected autonomous vehicle program, which increased by 300,000. And a 225,000 increase for the development and maintenance of a cost per transaction model being developed by finance. Other increases totaled 0.5 million, and there were various changes, computers, and building equipment. Security services had a reduction of 0.6 million due to two areas. One is the VidSys contract, which was reduced 300,000, plus the elimination of armored car services of 300,000 as we no longer have to do cash pickup. In addition, we had a 0.3 million reduction in electricity as we've migrated to all electronic tolling. This has reduced our electrical needs. Finally, there was a 10 abolished vacant toll collector positions, which account for a 0.9 million reduction. And as you see, the bottom table shows the personnel changes and the decline by 10 positions, which is what I was just talking about with the toll collector positions. So that wraps up my presentation of the full year final budget. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions from any members? Member Archer.
Thank you for that. So basically the two drivers, motor vehicle purchases, that was something that was unexpected because that was something that came through the governor's office. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, as part of, I think, the collective bargaining, and yeah, we weren't, it was different from the preliminary. We did not have that in there.
Right. And then the COLA.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Bardinger. Any other questions?
If I could just nuance a little bit there on that, I do want to make sure it's clear that both, the collective bargaining process is done through DBAM. Obviously the governor has been enormously supportive of our police, as all of the board has been. But I just want to make sure it was clear that the budget items, the process, and I think legal has kind of clarified this at other board meetings in the past, that and the specifics on how many cars and the dollar amounts and all of that, that's negotiated with the Department of Budget and Management.
Thank you. I didn't mean to misspeak. I just meant that it was something that's not within our control that we're necessarily have knowledge of beforehand in regards to our budget.
We had said the governor's office just wanted to clarify. The governor was obviously very supportive of the police, but the specific negotiations were done by DBAM.
So just one question related to the recommendations for approval for the prior two contracts. Where are those? We're talking about operating now. We're going to talk about capital, and then bring it all together. But where are those figures included in all of these projections?
That would be in a couple places. I don't have it in memory. Easy Pass Service Center costs. Is that 8? Bear with me.
It's 0873, Jeff.
Okay, 873. There it is. Okay, thanks, Will. Yes, 873 is the majority. That's where our service center costs. That's where you see that. There's some other types of costs like the additional personnel, things like that to support or augment support, which would be that'd be in our object 220. There's some additional funds for some of that as well. So that's where you would see the vast majority of those costs that would be in 873.
So
these are the latest figures, and I think that includes that, but I would be surprised if there might be some changes depending on what, additional information continues to come through, but this is the latest that I have.
Yeah, I think between the FY22 and the FY23 budget, we feel very comfortable that I can say confidently that all of the costs for like image review processing and things related to the AAT transition and backlog are in the operating budget. What I think Jeff is alluding to that's still being evaluated is the confirmation that the staffing costs related to the customer assistance plan, we're validating whether or not those costs are capital or operating. And either way, in conversations with Deb, it's not going to negatively impact us from meeting our coverage rate. However, we sure we've got it all reflected in the correct budgets.
thank you.
Member Artinger?
Sorry, I forgot to take my hand down.
Okay. I think this is some very good discussion, and appreciate that. Jeffrey, you want to?
Pretty much reached the
Okay.
end.
So Member Rosen.
Thank you, Member Rosen. Is there a second?
Second, Member Carroll.
Thank you, Member Carroll. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, members, and thank you, Jeffrey.
Okay, thank you.
We will move on to draft FY 2028 Consolidated Transportation Program. Jeannie Marriott will present.
Good morning. This is Jennifer Stump, the Assistant Capital Program Manager. Jeannie will not be available today, and I'll be presenting information.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. So the purpose of this presentation is to seek your recommendation for approval of the proposed draft fiscal year 2023 to 2028 CTP. The draft CTP was presented to the Capital Committee for recommendation for approval on June 2nd, 2022, and it will be presented to the full board for final approval on June 23rd, 2022. This 6-year fiscal year 2028 budget in the proposed CTP is $2.6 billion. The proposed CTP reflects a net increase in the 6-year fiscal year 2023 to 28 budget of $24.6 million. The net fiscal year 2023 to 2028, an increase in the 6-year CTP budget by $17 million for the Nice Middleton Bridge, an increase in the 6-year CTP budget by $24.4 million for the I-95 ETL Northern Extension, an increase in the 6-year CTP budget by $55.1 million for all other projects except the Nice Middleton Bridge, the I-95 ETL Northern Extension, and the reserves, and a decrease in the allocated and non-allocated reserves by 71. Fiscal year 2022 expenditures are projected to be $548.6 million versus the $573.2 million in the final fiscal year 2022 to 2027 CTP. $145,000. For adding construction phases, the construction phase of 2 projects were funded for a total of $19.4 million transferred from reserves as design reached 60% level and cost estimates were developed on fully developed scopes. For modified budgets to reflect completed projects, 4 projects were completed with no budget changes in the fiscal year 23-28 period. For modified active projects due to cost and cash flow adjustments, adjusted cash flows and funded changes in engineering and or construction budgets for 51 projects for a net budget increase of $72.9 million. Reserve changes, the allocated reserves decreased by $71.9 million and the unallocated reserves remain the same at $25 million. And we are seeking your recommendation to present for final approval to the board. Any questions or concerns?
Any questions from any of the members? Okay, if not, is there a motion to advance this item to, I'm sorry, go ahead. Member Ardinger, do you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to advance this item to the full board for consideration?
So moved.
To Member Ardinger, also move.
Okay, we have a motion from Member Carroll and a second by Member Ardinger. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, members, and thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move on to the next agenda item 7, financial forecast, approval of the financial forecast. Chantel Green will present. This is the last approval item on the agenda today. So we will ask Chantel to present here. Good morning, Chantel.
Good morning. Thank you. For the record, Chantel Green, Director of Finance. I'm here to present the fiscal year 2023 to 2028 financial forecast for your approval. Throughout the forecast period, the authority complies with all of its financial goals and legal standards, and no toll increases are needed during this time frame. The primary differences between the November 2021 forecast and the forecast that is before you today are outlined beginning on page 2. First, there is a $48.5 million increase in revenue throughout the forecast period. The primary driver for the increase in revenue is a one-time grant from the Maryland Department of Transportation to partially offset prior year reduced revenue from COVID-19. The grant funding will be reinvested into the agency's facilities and operations. Next, the operating budget expenses increased by $110 million throughout the forecast period, mostly due to salary increases that are compounded in future years. Capital expenses remain flat throughout the forecast period. The projected increase, as noted previously, is due to the rollover of unspent funds from fiscal year 2022. Additionally, bond issuances increased by $89 million over the forecast period, and that's due to the decline in net revenues, which results in less pay-go cash funding available for capital spending. And with that, those are the major changes reflected in the forecast, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Are there any questions? Okay. If not, is there a motion to approve this item, to advance this item to the full board for consideration?
So move, Member Rosen.
Thank you, Member Rosen. We have a second.
Member Archer, I'll second.
Thank you, Member Ardinger. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, members, and Chantel, thank you. We will move on to agenda item number 8, an update, the biannual review of revenue sufficiency. Chantel, you're still.
Thank you. The authority's board operating policy requires a biannual review of revenue sufficiency to determine if the current rate and fee levels
The,
communication with our traffic and revenue consultants. They're currently working on updating the next sort of iteration of the traffic and revenue forecast. So at this point in time, we're not expecting to see sort of insignificant variances, but, as you all know, accurate traffic and revenue forecast. So we're not necessarily trying to be overly conservative. We're really trying to be realistic in terms of what revenue we're expected to achieve throughout the forecast period. So they're currently working on an update right now, and depending on the timing of when that forecast depending on the timing of when the traffic and revenue forecast comes in, we'll likely bring an updated forecast back to you all right away, so that you can see the new forecast and what we're anticipating.
thank you, Chantel.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Chantel, for the update. Appreciate it. And thanks for all you do in your role at MDTA. I say that for everybody here that's on the call today. That completes the agenda. I do have a comment just as a follow-up. This meeting, just want to make sure, I guess the members would like the information as requested on items number 2 and items number 3 pertaining to details of the variance there that we saw. And Will, I guess you're going to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll provide for both the MA 2257 and MA 2868 contracts the itemized breakdown of what those costs are.
Member Rosen had asked, and I think we got a little budget. I think we were looking at that. I guess we'll see. Maybe we can possible and expect to see.
Yeah, absolutely. In the event, if there's any changes that need to be made, that we'll try.
Okay, thank you, Will. That is it. That's all I have on this great day today. Hopefully everybody will get out there. It looks nice outside. Hope it doesn't rain. But Anyway, I appreciate everyone's involvement here today and the committee. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Member Arden,
Oh,
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Member Rosen, a second. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.